Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hoopercast. It's us again. Hi, Dustin.
Hi, Hooper.
You know, when we were recording the episode for No Sudden Move, this episode is 2 tomorrows later. Is it 3 tomorrow? What day is it? Saturday?
Yeah.
I screwed up that analogy. I just wanted to use the word tomorrow because tonight's film is The Tomorrow War.
We are fighting a war 30 years in the future.
Is this a joke?
Our enemy is not human. We need you to fight.
You got drafted.
I will be back.
Why is this happening? What about the teachers' deferment and the veterans' deferment?
If I don't go, they're going to draft you in my place. But if something does happen to me, you and Mary will be taken care of.
If something happens to you, Dan, 70% of draftees do not return.
Sometimes a man does what's best for his family, not himself.
So, we're talking about The Tomorrow War tonight. That's because there's a lot of tongue twisters just waiting to screw me up there.
Right.
All right. The Tomorrow War is on Amazon Prime. Right now, it's directed by Chris McKay, written by Zach Dean, and it is starring, if you didn't catch the aggressive marketing, Chris Pratt, Yvonne
Strahovski.
Son of a gun, these glasses. All these cookies. J.K. Simmons, Betty Gilpin, Sam Richardson, Edwin Hodge. And yes, so this is a film in which is a science fiction film. And the premise is essentially that 30 years from now, humanity has been wiped out almost completely by aliens. And so, but they have also conveniently invented a very specific gateway of time travel to go between one point in time to the other, and that's it. So humans come back from 2052, I think it is, and into 2022, and they warn us, hey, this is what's going on. And so within a span of a year, there's a draft that's implemented. There's all kinds of chaos happening because we are drafting human beings, ordinary citizens, and we are sending them into the future for a week's deployment to fight these aliens. And then they get to come home. And so, of course, because of that, people in present day are dying, and there's protests because it's not our war. Like we're fighting an enemy that we haven't even seen yet in the present. It feels kind of hopeless, but they're out of people in the future. So Chris Pratt plays he does pray.
He probably prays.
He does pray a lot. But he also plays a character in this film who's a science teacher, biology teacher, and former soldier. And he gets drafted and goes to the future, and the film is about his experience during his deployment, what he learns, and what he does to battle the antagonists. So The Tomorrow War was another film that got kind of messed up by COVID. This is a Paramount film. It has a $200 million budget, and it got moved around a little bit because of the pandemic, and eventually the studio sold it to Amazon for distribution. It says for around $200 million. So I guess they just bought out the budget, put Paramount at zero, and Amazon just gets to, and then they marketed the hell out of it, and it looked really cool. So Dustin and I were going to check it out, and here we are. I'll say this. It was, I think it was the #1 most streamed film over the 4th of July weekend, something like that.
Yep.
I gave this film 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. I watched it on my phone. I had to watch it in 2 parts because it was like a Saturday and I have a bunch of children. And, but I really enjoyed it. Chris Pratt is really likable. So if you like Chris Pratt, this is a movie where you're going to enjoy him. And there's a lot of action here. There's a whole lot of shooting guns. There's a lot of explosions and running. And the aliens, I thought, looked really cool. And I really liked the sound design of this movie. That was one thing that enhanced the experience for me. I liked the setup. I liked the premise. I appreciated the beats. I appreciated the feeling of hopelessness, and then the feeling of, oh, wait, now we know something. And then here's the thing that we're going to do. And, oh, are we going to make it? I appreciated being taken through the highs and lows of this film, and I never thought there was a period where it dragged. There are elements of the structure that are kind of predictable. There's some things in here that that kind of are convenient for the plot, for sure. And there's a lot of talk about the how they choose to end the film. And we'd have to go into spoilers to talk about that specifically, but I know that there's contention over where they take the third act. So, but I think that there's a lot of people I know who've already seen this film and who really enjoy it. So I definitely think the general audience will really enjoy the movie and get a lot out of, and just enjoy watching, especially if you're, it's free. I mean, if you have Amazon Prime. So if you haven't seen it and all that sounds good to you, I recommend it. If you have a more discerning eye towards science fiction, here's Dustin's review.
All right. So out of the gate, 2.5 for me, 2.5 stars. I didn't hate it. I was engaged, and I did not like tune it out or like check my watch at any point. It was an all right little thing, but it was predictable. The structure I have issues with. Chris Pratt's story arc, his character motivations and arc, and all of that good stuff. It felt a little bit paint by numbers. It's been called like an action sci-fi movie in the vein of 80s action movies. And I guess I can see that 80s, 90s movies where, the heroes are just like these buff dudes who have very little motivation or reason to be there. And, it's like all those moments where like Arnold Schwarzenegger tries to play like a normal dude and you're like, no. Yeah. Or like, in this, Chris Pratt plays a high school science teacher with incredible abs. And I'm like, what? How?
He looked a little out of shape.
Right,
Not
sure.
to body shame him, but he had a little bit of spare tire there, a little bit of slab.
Sure. Right, exactly. But it's a star vehicle in the vein of 80s and 90s. Maybe that's what people mean. Because this is sold on the back of Chris Pratt. Yeah. And to that end, I think Chris Pratt does well. There's a scene, and we can talk about this. This is not spoilers. This is, first 10 minute stuff. There's a scene, Chris Pratt's character is, his wife is having like a Christmas party type deal. And he, is on the phone for this job opportunity that he does not get. Yeah. And Chris Pratt goes back in the house, and they almost didn't need dialogue. Chris Pratt's performance was so good there, where he's putting on this face for his daughter that says everything's fine, but you can tell it is not fine. It's not, yeah. And his again, you almost don't need dialogue because his performance is so flippin' good right there. Right. You can feel him. Like you can feel that there. And so there's some moments here where Chris Pratt really, really knocks it out of the park. And I would say, the parts where he doesn't knock it out of the park, I wouldn't put the blame on him. I'd put the blame on story. I'd put the blame on screenplay. As far as Chris McKay's live action directorial debut goes, I thought it was okay. I thought there's some moments there. So there is a moment, you've seen this probably in the trailer. There's a moment early on where an action set piece takes place in a stairwell. Mm-hmm. I felt like I had very little idea where geographically these characters were and how close the threat was to them. Mm-hmm. And there's a little bit of like one shot, two shot of actors running, then the threat, then the actors running, then the threat, rather than having them in the same frame at any point.
Yeah.
And which elevates that tension. It feels disconnected. It feels like, it's just hard to get a read on the action and how close the threat is to our characters. It gets better as it goes along. Maybe that's just a shortfalling of that claustrophobic location. But as it progresses, it's okay. I think that the direction could have been better, in terms of just locating our characters geographically within a frame, making sure that during these action scenes, all of that makes sense. Camera movement, direction, all of that stuff was just okay. So as far as Chris McKay's live action directorial debut, it's fine. But I think for me, the bulk of the problem lies in screenplay, in dialogue, in story, predictability. Again, in that same scene with Chris Pratt, where he gets turned down for the job, he says a line which I thought was incredibly on the nose and should have been cut out, like big time. It would have been my first cut for me. He's sitting on the couch and he just says, "I just feel like I'm meant to do something special with my life." And I'm like, no, that is not a line of dialogue in this film. I'm sorry.
Nobody asked about your feelings.
Nobody. It's good enough. Like, it's enough that you feel. You feel beaten by the fact that you didn't get that job. You don't have to sugarcoat it with, "I want to do something special."
But then his daughter says something like, "It's going to be okay, Dad," and something. And he even says, like, "Probably should be me saying that to you." And I remember thinking, like, yeah, guy, like,
right.
Good. Like, you were doing good at the beginning of the scene, and then you just sort of like fell to pieces. It's like your child's not supposed to pep talk you back into succeeding.
Right. Exactly.
Woof.
But yeah, so there's stuff like that. There's, without getting into spoilers, I mean, we'll get into spoilers in a minute. Yeah. But, some of the twists and turns the film takes are not entirely unforeseen.
No.
And if you're familiar with action, if you're familiar with sci-fi action, a lot of this is going to feel very familiar. It seems like I keep talking about this, but in some of the reviews that I've seen, a lot of people are harping on the fact that, it's like Alien. And it's like, you can't just say everything is Alien. Like, just because it has an alien doesn't mean everything is like Alien.
Yeah.
I can see where they're coming from, but it's not like Alien.
No, and there's something to be said for the whole thing. Like, there's only 7 stories or whatever. Like, lots of sci-fi is going to be structured like Alien. That's just the way. That's just the way stories go. It's just, oh, you mean it's a story? Oh, it's a story,
right?
Wait, so when you say this is like Alien, you mean it's a story, right?
Right. And or it's hey, some characters are walking through a thing and they have weapons drawn, and the aliens are hiding.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they might ambush them at any moment. Yeah, that's freaking every movie.
Yeah, that's
like, you can't just say
that's a scene.
Alien's the only one that ever did a hidden threat that would pop out. That's ridiculous.
Oh, there's like an alpha female in charge of them. Yeah, that's a lot of organisms.
Right. And that's pretty, I mean, yes, that's like Alien because maybe it's the most famous to do that, but it's not just Alien.
That's why we like Alien, because it did it the best and first.
Exactly.
That's why we're referencing Alien. Thank you for reminding us why we love Alien.
Yes.
We talk about this film, please.
To me, like, more than Alien, I felt a little bit of The Thing in here.
Yeah.
Not much, but a little bit. Yeah. And a little bit of Independence Day and a little bit of Edge of Tomorrow. Like, that's
a lot of
what
Edge
I
of Tomorrow
felt
for me.
That's what I felt most.
Yeah.
So I've heard a lot of people, it's hackneyed. They've done everything that they've done before.
God.
And I'm like, look, I'm guilty of saying that about films for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, just at a certain point, how much like it does it have to be before that comes up? It's a lot of things, and Zach Dean, the writer here, probably looked at a lot of things and said, "Hey, that's cool. It all influences me. Let's mash it all together."
Yeah.
And Okay. Cool.
It's okay for that to happen. I'm listening to a podcast right now and they're talking about how similar Forrest Gump and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button are. And they're written by the same dude.
Yeah.
You know, they still have different merits and faults regardless. Right. It's like, all right, so if that can exist, if that kind of dichotomy can exist, like we have to be able to say that films remind us of other films and that's okay. Yeah. Because other than that, this movie is pretty original, at least like, you know, I'll say before we go into spoilers, I'll say that like this, if you don't want to watch a remake, if you wanted to see an action movie or, you know, like a blockbuster science fiction film that's not based on a previous property, you're going to get that here. Yeah. And that should count for something, I think.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back. We're going to go to the break. And when we come back, we're going to talk spoilers for a little bit for this movie before we wrap it up. Hey, here we are.
We're back from the future.
Back from the future, dropping us. I love how they're like, we're going to drop you about 10 feet above the ground. And then like, you know, the thing messes up that's never explained why. It messes up and they drop them over that building. I remember I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, and then you see like people like smacking their spine up against the
pool. Even then, like he looks like he's about to hit the edge of the pool, and the visual effects artists are like, and they nudge him over a little bit.
Like, just keyframe him over a little bit.
Yeah, they add one more keyframe.
Screw physics.
Woo!
Chris Pratt defies physics.
Yeah. So the movie, so he escapes the future with the MacGuffin and goes back into the past. Not sure how that, I guess that can work because they send people in clothing bags or whatever.
Sure.
But they send him back with the serum. I really liked that whole oil rig sequence because I was just like, how are they going to get out there? And then I saw them all running on the walls. It's like, oh shit, there's like 100,000 of them.
Yeah.
And then I got the sense like, God, how many of these things are there? There's a lot. And I really liked that sequence, and that was an emotional part of the movie for me, was that whole thing, him trying to protect her. There's a little bit of like, you know, him jumping from the platform, like, okay, you either knew that in 4 seconds you're getting beamed up, and so this is kind of like an empty sacrifice, or you're stupid and you're going to risk the entire fate of the human race just to jump down and grab her hand and then you both get eaten, you idiot.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I didn't like that. It looked really cool. It looked like a painting.
It was a trailer shot.
Yeah, it was a really cool trailer shot. And it showed that he cared, even though you can show him caring just as much percent from his safe platform as a competent person.
Yeah, with one tear rolling down his cheek.
So he escapes into the past, and a lot of people said that could have just been the end of the movie. He gets back, and then the whole epilogue is, and we gave that to scientists and we saved everyone. And instead the film goes on for, what did it say, like another 40 minutes or something?
Yeah, something like
that. For him to go rally the remaining characters we were introduced to and go to Iceland and go ahead and kill the aliens now, leading to this confrontation on the ice that some people found kind of unrealistic or out of character. So I still don't have a problem with that. I was still into that sequence because otherwise a lot of the elements you gave these characters, like, you know, you can't have the redemption arc of Sam Richardson. You don't get what's his face with the claw necklace. You don't get there's no reason to have J.K. Simmons in the movie hardly at all if you don't have the third act involvement from him. And you show our hero being a little bit more, our protagonist being a little bit more active other than just being competent in a firefight. And otherwise special to where he is connected to the person who's in charge and he's the one who's going to get the MacGuffin delivered. You actually have him taking charge, being smart and figuring some shit out. So in that way, I don't have a problem with the end of the film. What are your thoughts?
I don't have a problem with the end being essentially a fist fight between Chris Pratt and an alien.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that, and here's why.
Yeah.
A, that's just kind of a cool idea.
Yeah.
And B, I think it's done well. I think if it was multiple aliens, then you stretch believability.
Yeah.
And you're already stretching it a little bit, but it's within the context of the film. You're not asking me to do too much more legwork than I've already done.
No, and they know them a lot better than they did the first day on the job. And also, you could even, if you want to split hairs, you could argue these things just thawed out,
just woke up.
Yeah, like they're haven't stretched.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not too worried about that. The part that bothers me more is how easy it is for them to get there. Mm-hmm. Like you go through the whole trouble of him going to the DOD secretary and him saying like, I'm not going to sanction this, not going to do it, and then it's just like, oh, okay, well then we'll just do it.
J.K. Simmons is like, it's okay, well, and it just feels a little bit like convenient that like, oh yeah, we can just go there. It's fine. No worries. And the 8 of us will uncover a spaceship, go into the spaceship, and deliver the killing stroke to these guys. Mm-hmm. It's like undetected into Russian airspace.
I feel like
because Russia doesn't shoot down planes.
Not at all. I feel like that's. I feel like that's the chunk that needs rewriting, not just Chris Pratt on the edge of a cliff with an alien. That's fine by the time we get there, but it's that chunk of how do we get there that needs rewriting.
Sure.
To me, I would agree though. I think when he comes back with the vial, you could end it there, but I don't think there's a lot of closure there, and here's why.
Yeah.
And this goes into maybe one of the reasons why I gave it 2.5 stars. They set up this really great thing. So, one of the twists and turns I mentioned that was not necessarily much of a twist is that Yvonne Strahovski plays the older version of his daughter.
See, that's just one of those things. I totally agree with you. Whenever I watch movies and then later, like I just go, oh, wow. And then after I watch it, I'm like, boy, I'm stupid. How could I possibly be surprised by that? One of the first things I thought was Dustin would have seen that coming. Like,
yeah. I mean, I saw it coming a mile away.
I'm really bad at seeing stuff like that coming. It's not sneaky at all. It's not cleverly. Yeah. It's just you see her and you think she's someone important, and I'm just like, I know that person from The Handmaid's Tale. I like her, and that's it.
Right.
Popcorn.
Right. But so she's the adult version of his daughter.
Yeah.
And so they have this really moving scene on the beach where she says a lot of things. She basically fills him in on what's going to happen in his life.
She breaks the prime directive.
Yeah, pretty much. She says, you and mom separate. Yeah. Divorce.
Yeah. You left us.
You abandoned us, and then you died in a car wreck.
Yeah.
And I always wanted you to like be the dad that I remembered and like save the family, and you didn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's a really powerful moment. That may be one of the most powerful moments to me watching it.
It was really well done.
And up to that point, like I'm on the film side.
Yeah.
What happens is he comes back with the toxin at the end. And the reason why that wouldn't be satisfying is because it does not fulfill that setup. So we've now set up that this man is capable of leaving his family and basically putting them all on a really bad path.
Yeah.
However, because you've set that up, you now have to address it. The problem is he comes back with the vial cut to black. You don't address it.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. They still didn't address it. And so you have him, you address it in that, hey, I'm going to, take care of these aliens.
Yeah.
And then the voiceover at the end says, I'm never going to leave them. And it's like, oh, cool. That's all we get.
Just checking.
Right. It's like, A, you were going to take care of these aliens anyway, because this is a dang action movie. And B, you were already doing it before she gave you that information. You were already taking down aliens.
Right.
So the fact that you're taking down one now doesn't suddenly equate to like a big grand gesture of change.
Yeah.
It's just it's just a reaffirmation that I'm going to take these things down.
They almost went into it. That they had him like sort of disassociating, when he came back, like a little bit like, stuck on the fact that he just saw her get like eaten and everything.
Yep.
And I thought like, oh, we're going to sort of show him almost repeating the cycle here.
Yes.
We're going to have a little bit of that.
That's what I wanted.
Yep.
That's what I wanted from the third act. I thought, okay, he comes back. They've already set up. Remember, they set up this fact that his wife says these people come back with PTSD and they don't talk and they don't, you know what I mean? And so I thought like, oh snap, they've set that up. They've set up the fact that he's going to leave the family. Like what we're going to do now is flash forward a few years. And nothing has changed, and he's like on the bad path, and he's fulfilling everything exactly that Muri said he was going to do.
Yep. Only
to then flip the script.
Yep.
Then I'm going to reclaim everything. But we've got 5 years, and of him screwing up and being all post-traumatic stressy,
and it feels like a studio note because the note would be. But in those 5 years, the presumption is a lot of innocent people are continuing to get killed in the future. And the film's conclusion doesn't save those people. So we think it's more palatable. I'm imagining this conversation happened. We think it's more palatable if he immediately takes action and prevents more bloodshed of fictional characters.
And I would push back on that because I'd say what's happening is the future people are all dying.
Yeah.
But we're going to change that anyway.
Yeah.
So that doesn't matter. They can all die.
Well, but people getting sent to the future from our present.
But they can't because the time
that's right.
thing is broken. That's right.
Everyone's wow. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
They can't.
That's true.
So no one's being drafted. No one's going to war.
You're telling me they only just now found that rig? Those things.
Yep.
That's another convenient thing. It's like, man, we just happened to be on this rig the one day they finally figured out where we lived.
And they overran that thing in like minutes.
Son of a bitch.
Right. Oh, well.
The rotten luck. Well, today's that day, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I wanted is like the third act to descend and him to fulfill, like start to fulfill what she said he was going to, that he was afraid he was going to.
Yeah.
And he's doing it through no fault of his own, repeating the mistakes of his own father. Hey, we also set up his own father had PTSD when he came back and was in a really dark place. We're setting all of this crap up. What we need now is for him to follow the exact same course that his father followed. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is he reverses course. Yep. He saves the day, gives forgiveness to his father, and then goes home and asks for forgiveness himself and gets it. And now everyone gets forgiveness and everybody is okay.
Yeah.
But it's not without the cost of those 5 years of bad times.
Yep.
And like that's the cost of this war for him is 5 years of abandoning his family.
Boy.
And that's
doesn't sound
where
very happy, Dustin.
It doesn't sound very happy, but it is in the end because he gets her and the world is saved and he's back with his wife. His daughter's fine. And then what I would have done, again, maybe the studio notes would have cut back on this and maybe this is cliche. I would have cut again to dadgum future and have freaking Yvonne Strahovski show up again with old man Chris Pratt in old age makeup, age him up in CGI, whatever. And they're like, happy family. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Everything's great. She's a biochemist doing stuff.
We'll still have like still jacked J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, that dude's just permanently jacked.
Yeah. He's just like, I did all this work. I'm not going to let it backslide.
Exactly.
No, but you're right. I thought we'd see Yvonne Strahovski. I thought we'd see her again. Maybe not like in 30 years, like, oh, let's go to that time now if it's all fixed, but maybe like 15 years to where like she's like in college and she's like, bye dad, I'm off to MIT, or she probably wouldn't be, I'm off to MIT, dad. She'd probably be like, goodbye father, I'm off to MIT, but just a little bit of like, and she's still going to be like a really smart STEM person.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And just to show we will in fact see this character again. I mean, we've got her now, but you like this actress. Let's just bring her back for one more scene.
Exactly.
10 years younger or whatever.
Exactly. And so that's where I went with it is what I think it should have been. And I always hate to say, like, I'm judging a film based on what it should have been. And I'm not saying I'm judging it based on what it should have been. I'm judging it based on, look at what it set up so clearly. Yeah. It set up, his wife is working with PTSD people. Yep. His dad says, I had PTSD. We're going to see some PTSD beyond one dang scene, but we don't. Yeah. And then, hey, Dad, you get really screwed up and you divorce mom and you die in a car wreck. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be against seeing the dang car wreck. Yeah. Like, for him, dude's in the car drunk and he's like, and then last minute he remembers his daughter's words and he's like, no, Verge. And he's like, careening off a thing, but he lived. And now the future's changed. And for him to judge his father so harshly too, that would be the perfect like dramatic irony for that to be like, man, I should have been so hard on him. That's exactly right. Because he does the exact same thing. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And that's what they seemed so clearly to be setting up. And then only to drop it. This reminds me of our review of Soul, where we brought up a similar thing, which was like, it's not that the movie's bad, but it sets up a few things that it doesn't pay off. You know, we thought that it would end with Joe, being excited specifically about teaching. Like that's his passion. And it's sort of just there, but it's almost like it got written out of the final draft, even though all the pieces are there. And it's sort of like, that probably wasn't part of what they were doing here, maybe. Sure. But it's just, it feels the same to me now that you're describing it. It's just like, it's beyond what they should have done. It's beyond what they might have planned to do at some point. It's just whether they intended to or not, they set up a better ending than what they gave. Well, and I get it. It's an action movie. Yeah. So to spend another 15 minutes of like, melancholy drama, I get it. It's probably not within the tone. It would be tough to juggle anyway, regardless. But yeah, you still have to get that, and then you can have your action scene, and you can still have Chris Pratt and his dad beating the crap out of a alien on top of a snow-covered mountain. You can get there. You just have to get there through the tragedy that seemed so clearly to be set up. Wow. That was good. And don't get me started on the fact that these men go to a high school student for their information about volcanoes, which by the way, speaking of things you saw coming, the second that kid said, volcanoes are nature's fury, I said, all right, how do volcanoes play into these aliens? Like, all right, just tell me. Like, that's exactly like in every whodunit when there's like the old senile lady who's like, I saw a ghost come down the chimney. And then it's revealed at the end that the bad guy came through the chimney, and it's like, you should have just listened to grandma 90 minutes ago. That's exactly what this is. That was another thing that snuck past me. I was like, wow, that kid's a nerd. And that was it. I didn't think any more of it. I was nerds. And I completely have an audience brain. And if I had just had my screenwriter brain, I would have been like, what's the point of that person there? And I think part of me, it's just like, maybe this writer just didn't learn to keep it trim. I always think maybe they don't know. Right. And maybe no one ever taught them. Really like, pompous and boastful of me to say, but also like lazy as a writer, like to go, I didn't even think about why that character's words might have mattered. No, I don't think it's lazy, because here's the thing, and I know we'll wrap this up in a second. Okay. But here's the thing, like when you watch a film, I think there's a really great there's a beauty in being able to just watch it as an audience member. Yeah. And sometimes I can get there too. It depends on the enjoyment of the film. Yeah. By the time the first act was ending, I wasn't quite engaged enough to just be an audience member. I was close, but I wasn't just there. And so, but that's the thing. Like you throw me in front of another movie that fully captures me, I can miss everything in the world. And I think that there's a beauty to that. And that's the way we're probably supposed to watch these. And then we watch them a second time to critique them. But if I'm not fully engaged, then I critique them on the first pass. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, like if there are things that are sticking out that take you out of the film, well, then you start to notice a bunch of stuff that you're not supposed to notice. Yeah, if you've been on the same theme park ride enough times, you stop looking at the 3D, you start taking your glasses off, and you go, "This is what it looks like without
glasses.
Yeah.
And you look to the right. Oh, there's the maintenance stairwell.
Right.
And it's just like, you're not supposed to look over there. It's like, yeah, but I've been on this ride
I've
like
been
10
here many
times.
times.
Yeah. You start to just look at everything like, oh, there's a light bulb out or whatever, or just stuff like that. I
thought of, speaking of theme park, I thought of Martin Scorsese during this film because I'm like, this is truly a theme park movie because it's like all these like schlubby dudes in t-shirts walking up, and then someone in like a glass booth saying, "All right, and dispatch." And like, no, we were to the future.
Yeah.
All right, guys, here's what we're looking for.
Right.
And you're like walking around with your 3D glasses and your gun, your fake little orange gun. That's exactly what the start of this was.
Orange gun. You're right, though. I mean, he had a point, I suppose.
Yeah. It looks like some of these guys just came right off like the Hulk coaster. They're in like they're like red, like sweaty t-shirt and like fishing hat.
Yeah, fishing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like I just came off of the Hulk. I threw up twice.
Yeah.
Now let's do this one.
Yeah, I just came from City Walk.
Yeah. Margaritaville, baby.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. That's it for the show. So, what are we doing? I don't want to talk about the order. I will say that by the time that this is released, we will have both seen Black Widow.
Yeah.
So that's probably next.
Yeah, probably so.
All right. I'm going to loosely commit to that.
All right. There we go.
Yeah. All right. I think John's in for that one. So it'll be you, me, and Mr. Johnny.
Excellent.
Yes. It's going to be great. Until then, everyone, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you later. See you next time.
Bye.